Hello again. We are Chris Lee, Max Barr, and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 16 here to do SEC basketball predictions. This one, Florida's trip to the Food City Center to face Tennessee. Of course, we saw these two teams play once. That was a disaster for the Vols. That came back on January the 7th. Florida won that game 73-43 in probably the worst game Tennessee has played in the Rick Barnes era. That gave a little bit of a stamp of validation for Florida if we needed one at that point. This game will be on ESPN at 11 Central. Max Barr, start us off. What catches your eye here?
Well, something just caught my ear right there, Chris. Early tip.
Okay.
Early game on this Saturday for a top 8 matchup. What could possibly not go as expected on an early tip in a top 8 matchup on a Saturday? This has something weird just all over it. This is whatever it may be. You can go into this one and you can say, guys, one of these teams had probably the most dominant victory of SEC play yet out of every game through this first month. You know, what are we even going to do spending 10, 15 minutes breaking down this game? This was the most lopsided affair. Blake, it's almost like we found ourselves in a few of these similar positions the past few predictions videos, and it seems to be not what you expect has happened in games where you think you know exactly what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, last time Florida played a game early, they scored 100 points in Lexington and lost. I guess that was a 10 a.m. game, wasn't it? I don't know if that's going to happen here. I don't think this one's going to be 106-100, but I do think it's going to be a little more competitive than it was last time. There's my prediction for this game. Yeah, I mean, it's quite a setup here. Our guy, Neil Blackman, Florida Basketball Hour, set the stage on Tuesday night. Tennessee hasn't lost 2 straight at TBA since 2020. Florida hasn't won at TBA since 2014. Something's got to give here. A streak is going to continue one way or the other, and we see how the Vols respond after the home loss to Kentucky, and we see how the Vols respond after the 30-point loss at Florida. What did they learn from that game? What can they do much better here? Those are the questions.
Let's start with Tennessee's offense because I believe that is going to be the story here. We had the 43-point game in Gainesville first time. There was, the 51-point showing at Auburn last Saturday. There was the 73-point showing in which Tennessee was, 11 of 45 on threes against a Kentucky defense that's not stellar. So I think that's where the focus is going to be. Now, I'll tell you what, I think a start would be not shooting 45 three-pointers again like we saw that. I think the need to get Zakai Ziegler involved, that's just a staple of the offense. So that's probably a misstatement. I like what they've been doing with their bigs, Milicic and Okpara in different ways. They'll let Milicic handle the ball a little bit. I wasn't always a big fan of that, but it's grown on me a little bit as I've seen it had success in the lob pass to Okpara. Max, I'm guessing those are staples of the Tennessee offense that we'll see a little bit more and a little less of just the freewheeling bombing from behind the arc.
Yeah, when you look at Tennessee's offensive efficiency on the season, it ranks, depending on where you look, it's somewhere right around in the 30s. Around there for offensive efficiency. It'll change based on where you look. But when you filter Torvik for just conference play, we're just doing conference play numbers, they rank 75th in the nation. So it's definitely taken a step back in the past few games, and it's almost double the rank based on just conference play. And I watched that game back. I did like the extended highlights, watched it back. I'm going to be honest. When we sat there on our post game, we were like, this was the second or third most threes that Tennessee's ever shot as a program. What are you doing? Just get inside. You don't need 3. Guys, I watched that back. Almost all those threes were open. And I would say If they did not shoot it, why are you not taking that shot? You are open. That's what you're there to do. So I don't know. I want to say, like, this Tennessee offense, they've got to, what you just said, Chris, they got to get inside more. They got to switch things up. They got to find ways to get Milicic and Akpara, maybe some more looks around the rim. But watching that game back, I was not of the same mindset I was when we were on that reaction just an hour after. I think the numbers might be a little bit misleading here on the Tennessee offense after they just couldn't buy one.
Well, Milicic is coming off a good game, and I think he's a key here because, just like I said, I thought that was an Amari Williams game for Kentucky against Tennessee. I think this is a Milicic game against Florida because, he hadn't shot the ball that well this season. I mean, he's still only shooting like 28% or whatever it is, right? But he goes 4 of 8 from 3 in that game against Kentucky. He got more shots, and I think that's important because, and again, Neil Blackman brought this up too. Like, if you're someone defending Tennessee, it's pretty simple, isn't it? You got to stop Chaz Lanier, and you got to stop Zakai Ziegler from penetrating and or getting open shots. Beyond that, what's the game plan? Like, is there anything that you're just like so completely set on to like, man, what are we going to do? No, like it's really, that's the focus. And you feel like if you can get to that point, it's pretty simple, isn't it? And so I think that's where like finding ways to get Milicic 8 3-pointers and again, hoping he makes 4 of them. Getting open looks. Like, I think that's pretty much the name of the game. And it's just, I think, beyond that. Like, it's beyond those two guys. And again, we're not saying that Milicic can't contribute or Gainey or Dubar or anybody like that. But it's just, I think you kind of know defensively what your approach is going to be against Tennessee. And I think it's kind of become the blueprint for a lot of teams is just to say, all right, how do we figure out how to defend Ziegler and Lanier? And not because we don't think the other guys can't score, but they are what makes the offense go. And if we can just kind of disrupt that a little bit, then we don't have the confidence that Tennessee is going to be able to beat us, offensively in other ways. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of, we'll see if Florida uses that same approach here. Sure, we could look back to the last game and be like, well, look at the scoring for Tennessee. It was Ziegler had 10, Lanier had 10, Akpara had 8, Milicic had 8, Gainey had 7. No one else scored. Well, that's what happens when you only score 43 points. But I don't think that'll be the case again here. But you better believe there's some things that Florida can take away from that last performance and use it here defensively.
Well, let's talk about the Gators because that offense is really something. I think Florida is scary good on that end of the floor particularly. You've got Walter Clayton and Elijah Martin, who are about as good a duo as you'll see anywhere. Will Richard is a guy that does a lot of things for them. Tommy Howell, Ruben Chignolo off the bench, and, of course, Alex Condon, who's really come into his own. I mean, that is so much firepower. But on the other hand, Tennessee is an elite defensive team. Ziegler can do things to people that a lot of people can't. I'm very interested to see how this plays out in a different building, in a different try.
Yeah, I think the most important part of Florida's offense is their relentless crashing of the boards in a game like this. As good as Tennessee's defense has been, as good as it has been, they have not been cleaning up the defensive glass. They haven't. They've been letting up some offensive rebounds. Part of that is because Akpar is always going for the block, making things difficult to even get an opportunity at an offensive rebound. But then with them going after the block, it opens up the offensive boards. This is a type of game where you get one more possession at Tennessee, you get 2 more possessions. That could be the entire game. That could be the difference if you winning by 3, losing by 3. And what Condon, what Chignolo, even a little bit of Alexis, what these guys can do on the offensive glass, that could be that missing piece that a lot of teams go into Tennessee and don't win. And especially you're getting a Tennessee team that is just as pissed off and is going to be focused as ever. Well, imposing your physicality and grabbing a few O boards could be the difference.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go next. So I don't even have anything else to add. Like I was going to say, like the offensive rebounding for Florida, we've talked about it all season. Like, it can be the story of any game they play in. And I think especially that could be the case in this game, where you don't feel like you're going to get the same amount of good looks potentially based on how Tennessee plays defense, which means, all right, you may miss a few more shots because you're on the road, but it's just their ability to go to get extra opportunities. That will be the story here. If Tennessee can prevent that, Tennessee's going to win the game, I think. But if they can't, then it gives Florida a great chance to win the game.
Picks, gentlemen.
When you look at Florida's just their resume and you look at what they've done, I think obviously Auburn would be number one in this category. But when you're looking at teams of potential to be undefeated, had just one or two things gone another way, Florida's got to be at the top of that list, with maybe just like Auburn as another team because of the Duke game. But you go to Kentucky and you have Kentucky make 14 of 29 threes and just break offensive efficiency records. You lose by 6. You go and then you turn around, you have Missouri at home. You're down by 20 because Caleb Grill has like 6 threes in the first half. You come back and you lose by 1. This is a team, had they not had an opponent go berserk on them twice in 2 weeks, could be undefeated. I think Florida's the better team. I think Florida's the more consistent team. I think Florida's the better offense. I think Florida has the better depth off the bench. Aberdeen coming in compared to Boswell coming in. That being said, I'm going Tennessee.
I knew it. I was like, I think you're setting us up here. I thought you were setting us up.
I'm leaning into that back-to-back home losses. Hasn't happened for Tennessee since 2020. It's a tough thing to do in this league. I think because Florida beat them by 30 the first time and Tennessee is kind of on a little bit of a slouch, I think the public's going to be heavy on it's going to be a public road favorite, something like that. I don't like that. Give me Tennessee.
Yeah, I didn't think Max was doing that either. Like, when I watch these teams and I watch the matchup, it screams Florida. But we have started to see the rematch portion of the SEC schedule. Like, I'm thinking Texas got clocked at Texas A&M 80-60 on opening night. I think Mississippi State beat South Carolina by 35 points. We saw the rematch last week. That went to overtime. It is a different game in somebody else's building. Stylistically, I think Florida should win this game. It can defend too. History just tells me that Tennessee does not play that badly for that long. Yes, we get this every year. These games where you watch them and you're like, they're not going to get out of the first round. But then they kind of snap back into place and start playing well again. Give me the Vols for that reason. Am I nervous about it? Sure. I'm more nervous picking against them because I just don't think they're going to continue to play that poorly, especially in that building. We've set this man up, Max.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're really going to do this to Tennessee again, aren't we? Their fan base are going to love the
man.
idea of us doing this to them again. Florida on the road in SEC play. At Kentucky, 106-100. We talked about that. At Arkansas, 71-63. Not, the best performance, but it's a win. Then at South Carolina, we remember that game where, quite honestly, South Carolina probably should have won. And now Florida goes into Tennessee, right? And like you said, Max, I think you said all the things that set you up to be able to just simply say Florida wins,
Yep.
But you're just like, it's the whole thing of Tennessee's coming off a loss, and do you really expect them to lose another game? I think Florida's the better team. And it's not just record-wise. I just think they're better. But I guess we are going to do it. I guess we're going to do it.
Oh, man.
But it's just...
I didn't think we'd do this.
I didn't either. Honestly, I legitimately thought there was a chance we were all going to pick Florida. I came into this expecting us all to pick Florida. But as we've talked through this, it is the idea that even sometimes if you think there's a team that's better, it's road games and SEC play, and it's the fact that Tennessee just lost at home. And we said going to that Kentucky game, I just don't know if this team's going to lose at home all season. I don't care who they play. But wow, they lost at home. Is that going to happen again here, 5 days later? It's probably hard to bet on that and predict that it will. So early start, as Max said, I'm going to pick Tennessee. I'm not doing it with very much confidence because I think if Florida comes out and plays the way they've been playing, I think they're better and I think they're going to win. But I'm just going to bank on history here and say that, as Neil noted, Florida hasn't won here since 2014. Tennessee's not lost back-to-back in 5 years. Combine those two together, I'll pick the Vols in the bounce-back spot here.
Wow.
If we do this to Tennessee again, I mean, are we going to be banned
All
from
right,
the Food City?
The Southeastern 16.
We're going to be banned there forever, you think?
By the way, kind of a cool little
no
note.
food fights for us.
The Ken Pom SEC all-player team, it has 5 of them. 3 aren't in this game between Walter Clayton, Zakai Ziegler, and Elijah Martin. High level.
Zakai
High
Ziegler,
level.
first team all SEC. You heard it here first.
This man has to gloat, doesn't he, Max?
I know. Hey, Josh Hubbard, though, last night.
He's a first teamer.
By the way, apologies. We did have some internet glitchiness during this, at least on my end. So apologies if it came through to the viewer. For Max Barr, Blake Lovell, we'll be back to predict all the SEC games for Saturday. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and enable notifications so you know when we have content. We will wrap these games up on Saturday. Thanks for watching our basketball content here at Southeastern 16. God bless you. We'll see you again soon with more of that.